Did you see that?
What happened?
S-Hawk! Whoa, 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 whoa! That, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, episode 1109 of One Piece has some animation that people just can't stop talking about. Now, the episode itself, in terms of the substance material, is not the best, not by a long shot, though arguably it is one of, as Shanks fanboys, woo, we've been waiting for the red hair wonder greatness that we know is coming. We can feel it. Oh, the moment we saw El Bafu and we saw the aura of the Red Hair Pirates, it was immaculate. It was perfect, all right?
Down to the last minute details.
And of course, seeing the combinations of Rob Lucci and Luffy, Kaku and Zoro on the Seraphim was outstanding. Now Toshi Shida at it again with the greatness. But obviously, what caught the vast majority of the attention was the work done predominantly by Vincent Chansard. Yo, let's, man. And I can kind of see where he's going with the style of animation to a degree. After Wano Country, there were a lot of fears about what was going to happen with the animation moving forward for the story of One Piece, because the animation in Wano Country was so top-notch. It was so extraordinary by so many different animators across the spectrum. And Toei really kind of decided we have to compete in some way with, let's say, Ufotable and Demon Slayer that are producing high-quality Sakuga. We just can't keep on doing what we were doing, let's say, in Dressrosa. It's not gonna happen. And off the rip, when Zoro cut the giant warm eddy, and then later on, Rob Lucci versus Luffy, man, yeah. And even scenes like these, where it was only one or two panels, effectively, of Zoro trying to avoid S-Hawk in the manga, we have a whole minute and a half long extravaganza of Zoro trying to hit S-Hawk. So let me give credit where credit is due to the folks that were behind the creation of this episode of One Piece. Screenplay is Jin Tanaka. Art is Dino Santos. And that is predominantly the stuff for Elbaf. The scenery of Elbaf, that the lake, the forest, the mountains, and the sunlight beaming on the mountains, Elbaf just, I cannot wait. I've been looking forward to Elbaf for so long, for damn near most of my life, ever since Little Garden. Please, Oda, do not skimp on the Elbaf greatness. And off the rip, it just looks so damn good in this episode with the scenery and the setting. And us Elbaf fanboys and fangirls, us Shanks, Red Hair Pirates fanboys and fangirls, we can accredit Dino Santos for that scenery, for the wonderful shots of Elbaf. The animation goes to Masayuki Takagi and the assistant Isaku Inoue. Direction is Nanami Michibata, the same person that directed episode 1057 of One Piece, the, I would argue, the pretty damn well directed episode of One Piece where Sanji hits up Zoro on the Denden Mushi. Sanji, he destroys the raid suit and then hits Queen with that devastating Hell's Memories. So Nanami Michibata has done some good stuff for directing, and this episode, I thought, in terms of direction, I thought it was very good. Particularly, of course, at the end with the Red Hair Pirates. God damn, son. Oh my God. And of course, Kid. Let me not ignore. Let me not ignore Kid, okay? Shouts to Kid, shouts to the Kid Pirates for the time being. But obviously the main thing here is just the energy and the aura. I'm just saying Shanks and his boys were on point. Absolutely. And storyboard, once again, is Nanami Michibata and Masahiro Hosoda. Some, but not all, of course, but some animation accreditation goes to Masaya Hasegawa, Sol Taruban, for art again, Dino Santos, Now Toshi, aka Goat Toshi Shida, maybe Chikawa, I'm not too sure there, and of course, Vincent Chansard. And the end section of that thing with S-Hawk was also done by Sol Taruban when he has his leg transform into the bladed skates, and then he tries to attack Luffy and company. Luffy tries to attack him, then he misses. But here's something that Vincent Chansard said about his scene on Twitter. It's like a 22 post excerpt on his scene. So let me go through real quick. Hello, everyone. I wanted to talk a bit about the thinking that went into my latest scene. I used to do similar things on Tumblr. Didn't know he was on Tumblr. So listen, Tumblr was an odd experience for me, but hey, you know what, to each their own. Twitter word limited has always made it quite complicated. Sorry for the very long, hyper-specific posting, but here are some thoughts. First, I want to talk about Michibata-san's Enkote. It's no secret that I am very fond of working with Michibata-san. I think she is someone who is genuinely good at everything, both action and acting. For this specific scene, Michibata-san told me the only limit is Zoro cannot fight back. The idea in this fight is that it is the battle between a very skilled and experienced fighter and a kid with knives. In real life, you might have already heard that no matter how good at fighting you are, if someone brings a knife to a fight, you run. What immediately interests me in Michibata-san's Konte is this very real fear that no matter how strong Zoro is, at any moment, a single mistake can be dangerous. Despite the strength gap, it creates tension in the fight. Another interesting thing in Michibata-san's, and am I saying this right? I'm not too sure. The Enkonte,
No idea!
Was the emphasis on the eyes of the characters, that there were a lot of eye cuts. I felt that it was a good opportunity to show how they perceive the fight and what is happening, especially for Zoro, who has to be very attentive to able to dodge everything while protecting Kaku. So we see like those scenes where Zoro looks at S-Hawk and then he's like some sort of demon, some sort of beast in his eyes, which is kind of ironic, honestly, because earlier in the arc, he said that he was more human than Mihawk. And then here you have S-Hawk looking like some sort of Duke of Hell trying to press Zoro. It was, that's very interesting. From there, it was my job to add choreography, think about how they should be fighting and what their style should look like. Michibata-san trusted me, gave me a lot of freedom, and listened to all the requests I had until the end. I can't think of her enough for her trust. So you can kind of see that in his own way, he could kind of direct the flow of the fight that he thought would be best, and Michibata-san did give him that leeway to do what he needed to do. We continue on. On the subject, I am now going to talk a bit about Zoro's fighting style here. As you might have heard, Zoro is a sword fighter. He uses 3-sword style, but here, as he not only can use his swords, but he also has to hold Kaku, his capabilities are very limited. What we know about his swordless style is that he uses a few claw moves. So talk about his Nutori, his no sword style. Ultimately, what is interesting here is that Zoro has always been someone who would rather deflect than dodge. Here is one of these instances where he can't. Hence, the challenge of thinking about how he would be fighting. Interestingly, Zoro is both an aerial and a ground fighter. He jumps a lot, and he has a tendency of blocking until he can land a named attack. You rarely see him go for attrition war, points, or win by bleed out. In the situation, Zoro has way more experience than S-Hawk, who is at this point literally a newborn. So I really wanted to go for this honed, thorough experience kind of style where Zoro would try controlling the space and distance with his opponents. Although stronger, Zoro is very aware of the danger Hawk's abilities pose. So Zoro would try to create distance, controlling the sharp parts of Hawk's by either blocking or grabbing in the non-threatening parts of his body. Something I saw happening very early on is him trying to get rid of Kaku by throwing him in the air at a moment where he would see an opportunity to create distance. Zoro also has experience fighting with a huge hindrance in his arms, referring to Enies Lobby at Usopp a long time ago. So there's already a reference of him moving while using someone else as an object. Regarding the fighting style of the Seraphim, coming up with the way S-Hawk would fight after the lineage factor kicks in. It's not important info to register, but you can see the Seraphim eye patterns turn into Mihawk's at the start. So the lineage factor, meaning Mihawk's DNA, and thereby allow that swordsmanship and the sword skills coming into play. Usually, Seraphim styles seem to be reminiscent of the warlord they're based on. But in the case of S-Hawk, so whether his hand-to-hand style will either be Das Bones adjacent or Cypher Pole adjacent, as they are the people he probably spent more time around. So you see how the hand-to-hand style, we've never seen Mihawk do any hand-to-hand stuff, but we have seen Das Bones do that. You see that? And because he has Das Bones abilities, he would actually incorporate that into his sort of hand-to-hand style. And just how we saw S-Hawk and S-Snake go to Amazon Lily to fight the war against there, and the assumption that he makes is that, okay, maybe Cypher Pole agents also could have been around S-Hawk. S-Hawk could have seen that stuff and incorporate that stuff into his fighting style too. Like, for example, S-Bear was also around Lucci and CP0 on route to Egghead Island. So stuff like that was incorporated into Vincent's way of perceiving this moment. Cypher Pole's style of fighting, in the way it has been depicted in the manga, is very similar to the training in martial arts of monks and Shaolin trained martial artists. So the way I saw his barehanded fighting style at this point in the story was this very pretty form, which, because of his current lack of experience, would lead to a lot of unnecessary movements and telegraphed attacks. Attacks that an experienced fighter like Zoro would be able to react to. To him, it would probably feel like seeing after images. So in a way indicating that Zoro was able to kind of gauge what he was gonna do before he did it, even though these movements were very, very flashy. So far in the story, the Seraphim have been shown as overpowering anyone they face. They had yet to encounter any opponent that would make them go, why is none of my attacks landing against the Jafar, bleep that out, thank you very much. Although strong, they have been able to show a very battle smart way so far. When a fighter is not very experienced, or they have practiced only one martial arts, their core martial art is very obvious. I like that for Hawks, as it reinforces the idea of him being less experienced as an opponent to Zoro, who will look more brawlish, mix-ish, and harder to read. This is where in that sequence you can kind of see moments of Zoro just throwing Kaku up into the air, and then he's actually, with his hands, he's stopping S-Hawk from doing certain techniques. He's actually grabbing his forearm, kind of throwing him around to try and manage that distance and shut down potentially any lethal moves from S-Hawk. Most of the inspiration from Hawk's movements come from the Eagle Claw style, the northern style of Kung Fu. Lately, in animation, you see a lot of Southern Kung Fu inspired movements, which is great. But I personally am slightly more fond of Northern styles. In general, I like to see different martial arts like Taekwondo, Muay Thai, BBJ, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I think. We also have some possibilities for boxing in upcoming episodes on the subject style S-Hawk's ability to transform. Bro, Taekwondo and Muay Thai would be Sanji. Ooh, that would be perfect for my boy, either way. And also Capoeira too. But that being said though, on the subject of style, S-Hawk's ability to transform his limbs made the choice of using a style for both legs and arms obvious. Now that it's all said and done, ultimately this fight narrative importance is much more tame compared to, let's say, Zoro versus King, for example. So even though I did my best with the animation, I had to make sure it did not feel like Zoro's ultimate fight. We will see what we can do once there's a big narrative fight coming. My two next appearances will be very, very small, akin to 1101, which of course is the rematch, the greatness of Luffy versus Rob Lucci. But after that, if I have a similar freedom here, I have hope for the next big fight, fingers crossed. So that was a lot. I wanted to read it because I thought it was a very unique and interesting perspective on a scene that ultimately is just like a minute or minute and a half. It's not much time at all, but you can see the thought process that Vincent had going through that entire thing with making arguably one of the best scenes of the year with S-Hawk attacking Zoro and Kaku and trying to kill them. And of course, we have to give, again, credit to Michibata-san for giving him the freedom, the drums of liberation, giving him the freedom that he needed. He's considering the idea of Zoro being the experienced fighter and S-Hawk being the inexperienced fighter because he's very young. The idea of incorporating some styles of martial arts to S-Hawk, and it could be akin to those around him and also Das Bones. Incorporating Kung Fu, the Eagle Claw style, considering things like the Shaolin Kung Fu and various other things like that. This, I think, was very interesting, and it shows you the thought process that he had in making what this was in episode 109. To me, I think it's a really smart usage because with S-Hawk, you can then upscale this to other characters that are very good fighters throughout the entirety of One Piece. Even the main characters like Jinbei, Sanji, Zoro, obviously, and then Luffy. It's taken into account things like Jinbei being the refined martial artist that he is for karate, and then really fixating on that karate aspect of his moveset and how he would dodge, how he would block, and things of that sort. Let's say Sanji and how his martial arts style would incorporate a lot of that capoeira, a lot of that taekwondo, a lot of that Muay Thai, and how he's very precision focused, where his attacks have focused on certain parts of the body for maximal damage and impact and efficiency. You have things like Zoro, where Zoro has the one sword style, the two sword style, and the three sword style that gives him ways to kind of juggle between different styles, even let's say in the middle of combat. And then of course someone like Luffy, who is that high octane but all range brawler who can hit you with maximum power from any angle. When was the last time we have seen Zoro use something like the Yashigarasu, when he spins like a wheel and then he dashed up Luffy's arm and then made all of those sort of crow-like cuts with his Santoryu? When was the last time we saw the Enbima Yonezu Onigiri? The one that he did in Enies Lobby, where he has that specter, that ghost behind him, and his swords are starting to bend. Or let's say the Yuki Yuzume, the Bull Ogre Brave Claw, the one he actually used to beat T-Bone, when he has that sort of like 3-sword style, but it's like a 1-thrust sort of move. There are so many moves that Zoro has at his disposal that you really don't see anymore. Let's say Sanji, my boy. When was the last time we saw Sanji use the Santen Decoupage, what he used to beat Wanze, where it's 3 simultaneous kicks in an instant, pinpoint attacks to the lower face, the middle of the chest, and then the lower torso. I haven't seen that in a very, very, very long time. What about the party table kick course capoeira breakdance move he has? I haven't seen that in a long time either. Or the antimatter kick course, one of his best moves in the pre-time skip. I haven't seen that at all. It's honestly like since Thriller Bark, I haven't seen that move. Or let's say for Luffy, the twin jet pistol that he used against Rob Lucci way back when. Or let's say the Grizzly Magnum that he used against Caesar Clown. Or the giant jet shell that he used against Moria, right? One Piece characters, the main characters, have so many moves at their disposal, and we don't even see half of these moves anymore. Like, it's just go through the list of moves. You're like, hold on, time out. Oh my God. Oda's giving these guys so many moves throughout the entire pre-time skip and early post-time skip, and we haven't seen these moves in such a long time. Now, obviously, given manga and how dense Oda, oh man, there is a chalk ton of material that Oda always puts in his manga chapters. If you were to compare a Black Clover or a Bleach chapter to a average One Piece chapter, in terms of the amount of time it will take you to finish that chapter, One Piece would be like 4 or 5 times longer in terms of time, because there's just so much going on per panel, per page on average. There's only so much you can do, I would say. Animators, I think, when it comes to choreography and fights, they should take advantage of this, for sure, absolutely. Oda, if he Warner can't do it, then you guys can take advantage of that, and then you can incorporate so many unique moves, particularly with Gear 5 Luffy now. Oh, please, oh my, the sky's the limit. You can incorporate so many different things in the character's repertoire for their move sets and really make it some of the most intense stuff, while having really cool callbacks to moves we haven't seen in, unironically, 10 years, 15 years. Unironically, it's been like that long since we've seen some of these moves. It's crazy. What Chansard is doing kind of reminded me of going back to a lot of these core moves, a lot of these core things that the characters can and should be able to do, and incorporating that while knowing who their opponent is and how their opponent would treat them in a fight. And in the case of S-Hawk, it's really diving into the essence of the character and then building a sort of combat style from there. So at the end of the episode, visually, it was stunning, it was breathtaking, it was phenomenal. Like Shanks and the God King and his crew, again, Dino Santos, appreciate you, obviously, because that was beautiful. Elbaf was phenomenal. But the detail that Chansard had incorporated, just the thought process of getting to that, I can really, really appreciate. Because from there, let's say in the future, if he has more freedom, what could he do with a Luffy, with a Sanji, with a Zoro, with a Jinbei, bro, like even characters like Nami. When was the last time we saw Nami use her mirages? Nami has mirages, and I can't, like, where? Where are her mirages? Really taking the plunge into the characters and how they shoot with the fight and things of that sort. And their opponents, I think that's like really important. I think Chancellor, he nailed it. I think I think he was spot on. Oh, absolutely. So in the future, when I have time, I'm gonna maybe do an interview with him, hit him up, see what's going on. I think it'd be hella dope for damn sure. But right now, I'm addicted to Elden Ring. I love that game, bro. I love, by the way, if you don't know, on Twitch. And also too, that reminds me, I did my reaction first to this episode on my Patreon, link in the box below. And Elden Ring streams have been going on for a minute now over on twitch.tv. My first playthrough of the game, and man, I am just sucked in. So, on that note, let me know your stance on this episode of One Piece. Rate the video, comment, subscribe, and click on the bell to join the notification squad. And I believe you have to go onto your phone, your app, and actually turn on notifications for subscriptions too. So until the next time, I'm gonna catch you guys on the flip side.
See you. Bye-bye.